Hey everyone, it's Lexie. So in today's video I will be doing my review of part 3 of the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. So I think I have reviews for the first 2 seasons somewhere. If I do, I'll have them linked up in the cards and down below. But this is probably one of my, part 3 I was really excited about. I felt like this is probably one of my currently favorite TV shows at the moment. So I was really excited for part 3 coming out, especially with like the ending of part 2. I was really interested to see what this next season would have in store, and I was not disappointed. I have my little notes here, so if you see me looking down, I took notes because I feel like with reviews I kind of like bounce all over the place, so this is kind of to keep me more grounded. But obviously if you haven't seen part 3, there's some spoilers in here. I'll try to keep this as spoiler free as possible, but I feel like because this is built upon other seasons, just be aware there might be spoilers, more so with part 2 and part 1, so just be aware of that. But overall I felt like this season had a lot better pacing than especially like part 1 and part 2. I felt because the like in terms of the storylines, I feel like they were a lot more interconnected, and in doing so this allowed for the plot to flow a lot better, and it wasn't as like kind of like stop go that I felt with part 2. I still really love part 2. I think part 2 is my favorite, but out of the 3 so far, but maybe part 3 will have a little bit, if I watch it again, maybe it'll become my favorite. But part 2 is still my favorite, but I felt like it was a bit more uniform in terms of the timing. The plots were a little bit more, like I said, interconnected, and I felt like that added to the pacing of this season, and I thought it was a lot better than that. It was a lot more fast-paced than especially if you look at part 1. Like part 1 is very much setting up the center stage for kind of the stuff that happens in part 2 and part 3 as well. So I felt like this one's a lot more fast-paced. The stakes were a lot higher, and I really liked that. I think my biggest complaint for this season was just all of the singing that's going on in here. I was just like, I'm not a big fan. Like I didn't mind the last episode of part 2, the kind of singing thing, because that was part of the masquerade charade thing that they were trying to pull off, which I thought worked with that. Like that was fine, but I didn't like, it was more so to do with like the cheerleading ones, because it was like they did one routine and then they did that same routine over, and it was like a full-on like a good solid 2.5 minutes of cheerleading, and I honestly would just fast forward through it because I don't really care much for that. Like I didn't understand why they did so many of these. Like one was fine, but they did the exact same routine in a later episode, and I was just like, that wasn't like, it didn't need to be there. Yeah, I saw like there was jokes on BuzzFeed, like there's an article about it, and like how they're trying to be like Glee. I would never watch Glee, but that's like kind of the gist that I got. I'm like, why? I didn't think that was necessary. So that was like my biggest complaint out of here. I just didn't like those extra singing. Like the singing for the hair moon, fine, it's like the ritual thing, but the cheerleading stuff just really did not sit well with me, and like I said, I just fast forwarded through the whole thing. I really enjoyed this time around the character arcs in here. I felt like we had a lot more character development in terms of like the side characters. I felt like season 2 there was a lot of character growth for the character of Lilith, but I felt this time around like all the character development that she had in part 2, I felt like that was completely lost, and in particular I felt like her character was underutilized in this season, and she's probably one of my favorite characters. Like she's just a very complex, interesting character, and I felt like she was underused, and some of the growth that we saw in almost like her humanity that she kind of gained back after this, like I felt like it was completely lost when we get introduced to her this time around. So I was a little disappointed in that, and I felt like I felt like she was underused, but I'm thinking because it was like torn, like basically the storyline was split between like hell and earth. I felt like that kind of played a part in it, but I feel like now in part 4 there'll be a better balance between the two. So I'm hoping we get to see more of Lilith in part 4. So I was disappointed with that, but I did really love obviously the character of Caliban. Oh my god, I sent my sister a picture of it. I'm like, if you could find me a man that looks like this, like, you know, that would be great. Because but yeah, I thought he was an interesting character too. So, and he was mostly shirtless most of the time, so but in terms of like the guys, I also really loved, like, people have been ripping on Nick through this whole thing, and the thing that he told Sabrina after the hair moon, or the moon hair moon, like ceremony, and like what he said. Like, I know there's been a lot of like comments in like on Instagram about this, but I feel like he is kind of suffering from PTSD and like assault. So I think like the way I feel like there was some sexism in terms of like the comments of how people were saying he was reacting, but just because it's like, you know, a girl can act that way after going through what he went through, but he can't. So I thought that was interesting. I thought kind of showcasing his internal struggle I thought was interesting, and I thought that would be more realistic instead of him being all happy-go-lucky afterwards. So I thought that was more well suited. But yeah, like I said, overall I really loved this season. I thought it was very suspenseful, and I liked, like, my brother, like, I think what I really like the best about this show, like, it's weird, it's strange, that's what, like, I get that, and some of the stuff I'm like, that's just a little bit weird. But I feel what I really like the most about this show is not only the characters, but the themes that it explores. It's very much draws a lot of parallels to our society. I love that, and kind of the stuff that's going on now that has become more relevant over the recent years, in particular, like sexism, like consent, like misogyny. And I love how it shows, like, you kind of saw this more also in the Christmas special in part 1, but just kind of how religion, like Christianity, draws a lot of parallels to like the witch religions that they have. And yeah, I just think it's really interesting, and just like how religion can be a form of manipulation and control, and how people get control over women. Like, I thought that was really interesting. But like I said, I think the themes in here are really relevant, and I think because the show like tackles that subject matter, I find it really interesting, just how it can tie in the fictional aspect of the witching world and use it as an allegory of our society. I think that's done really well, and the show never takes itself too seriously in like some of the stuff it does, and I think that's what makes it work so well. So like I said, overall I really enjoyed this season. I probably would, at this point, I've only done one watch through of it, I would probably give it a 4 out of 5 stars. Like, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was well done. And basically, like, episodes, I think my favorite episodes were the hair moon episode, 7 and 8 at the end. The ending was crazy, and I can't wait to see what happens next. I still really love season 2. I think that one is my favorite right now. Maybe with a couple rewatches with part 3, maybe I will maybe like it a little bit more. But overall, like I said, I was pleasantly surprised with this. I enjoyed it. I just didn't like the singing aspect in here. But yeah, that's kind of it. I feel, even though I took notes, I'm kind of all over the place in terms of my review and all that. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought about this. I really love the show. It's like a guilty pleasure read. It's a little strange. It's a little bit different, but like I said, it's the themes that it explores that I really enjoy. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below what you thought about this season and all that fun stuff. So yeah, I will see you guys next time. Bye guys.